agreed to, and I call the member for McKellar.
Mr Deputy Speaker, except Labor will be. That's the whole problem now with what the member for Fenner has been saying. He spent a good 15 minutes and 3 seconds telling us how bad tax cuts are, but Labor will have bigger and better tax cuts than the coalition. In fact, I was so concerned by his obsession with size, I wondered what was going on. So, in order to justify his tax cuts are better than our tax cuts, he quoted from the Grattan Institute at great length. One was wondering where the Australia Institute was today, or the Whitlam Foundation, or indeed any of the other front groups that Labor Party has set up over the years to justify their policies. And then, of course, we have the coup de grace, but I'm afraid he buried it, Ross Gittins. He quoted Ross Gittins. Now, we know the member for Fenner is somewhat upset that he yet has not had an opportunity to appear on the front pages of GQ. But I assure the member for Fenner that there is one person who will never bump him off the front page of GQ, and that's Ross Gittins, both in economic theory and in fashion. But, of course, he wasn't going to say, he buried the lead. He quoted Rolling Stone. And Mr Deputy Speaker, if I too may quote Rolling Stone, and I say this sincerely to the member for Fenner, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometime, you might find you get what you need. That's right. I'm a croner, not a singer. Mr Deputy Speaker, none of us will, Mr Deputy Speaker, although I have to say the member for Reid does an awesome karaoke night, and it's not to be missed. And I believe, Mr Deputy Speaker, I've seen you at a couple of those nights, and you've done very well indeed. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, sorry. I think what we have here, and the member for Fenner touched on, this is actually an ideological and philosophical issue for both sides of parliament. Do you believe that you create a fairer society when you cut taxes? Now, we on this side would say yes. The answer is absolutely yes. And we would point to the same experiences that the member for Fenner speaks of. When you look at the United States in the 1980s and the 1990s, when you look at the United Kingdom in the 1980s and the 1990s, they had governments of both sides of this divide who instituted tax cuts, both personal and corporate tax cuts, that massively improved equality and fairness in both of those societies, both in the United States under Ronald Reagan and then Bill Clinton, in the United Kingdom under Margaret Thatcher and then under Tony Blair. Tax cuts are the principle of improving equality of opportunity and fairness in our society. That's why this bill is so critical for what we do. If you want to reduce inequality, if you want to quote the Royce-Falinski model and know that you are going to improve matters, then you need to know that reducing taxes improves inequality in Australian society. Why do we say this? Because it's the only way inequality has ever been reduced anywhere in the world. And if you want to go the other direction, and the member for Fenner knows this, but he dare not speak his name, just look at the policies of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. Massive taxes, massive government subsidies, and they have a refugee problem. Their people cannot wait to get out of the country. And every day, neighbouring countries in South and Central America open their borders so the people of Venezuela can actually buy food across the border. Why? Because of high taxes, because of government interference. And the Labor Party used to know this too. When under the Hawke-Keating government, they realised that as well. And the member for Fenner knows this as well. He wrote an entire book on it. And I just looked up the index, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I did not see him reference once. Not once did he reference Rolling Stone, Ross Gittins, or the Royce-Falinski model. So I don't know, maybe it wasn't a well-researched book. That's it, thank you, that one. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, there are some simple questions. Do you believe that this parliament should allow people to keep what they have earned? Do you believe that any tax system should incentivise work and effort and risk? And do you believe in fairness? Because if you believe in any of those things, if much less all of them, then you need to vote for this law. The Labor Party is saying that they will oppose this because it's not big enough. Well, let's see them vote for a tax cut that isn't for foreign backpackers. Let's see them vote for a tax cut that's for Australians. Despite claiming to be progressive, Bill Shorten is succumbing to the archaic class warfare of centuries ago. Over the past 5 years, we've witnessed his efforts to snatch hard-earned money and relocate it to those apparently deemed more deserving. The Leader of the Opposition essentially seeks to align our democracy with redistributive ideologies, threatening our economic equality and well-being. However, any reasonable person would see that Labor's plan to further redistribute income is without valid justification. Australia's top 10% today already contribute almost half of the total net tax paid. Moreover, the top 1%, about 90,000 individuals, are liable for approximately 17% of the government's income tax revenue. There is absolutely no need to propagate this existing inequality. There is also no need to increase income tax for any Australian, regardless of wealth. Our country needs lower, fairer and simpler taxes for every Australian. This bill, which seeks to impose the personal income tax plan, outlines a threefold strategy to alleviate household budget pressures and provide certainty for most working Australians. The changes strike the right balance between lower tax and equity. Simply put, this bill ensures that the top 10% pay their fair share of tax without compromising their entitlement to lower rates. We have to remember that this is the money of everyday Australians and not of the government. Taxpayers earn every dollar of income through laborious work and labour. They have the right to spend it as they wish, with as little exogenous interference as possible. This 7-year plan allows them to do just that. In addition to lowering taxes, we are providing Australians with the certainty that they will face the same tax rate over the majority of their working lives. And unlike anything proposed by those on your left, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this plan is affordable and fiscally responsible. Each dollar spared by taxpayers is not compensated by another increased tax, but also isn't the cause of a budget deficit. In fact, our federal budget is set to return to surplus in less than 2 years' time. Whilst Labor has already announced over $200 billion of taxes in opposition, the housing tax, the savings tax, the family business tax and the retirees tax, we as the government have successfully sought to reduce our taxpayers' burden. And at the same time, we've put an end to the debt-creating machine initiated by the Rudd government. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, this bill improves the welfare of taxpayers via 3 steps. Step 1 is to provide tax relief to low and middle income earners and thus help ease cost of living pressures. The bill will introduce the low and middle income tax offset, a new non-refundable tax offset for the 2018-19 and to 2021-22 financial years. This counterbalance will provide a maximum benefit of $530 to 4.4 million taxpayers and assist more than 10 million Australians overall. The maximum $530 benefit will be distributed to those earning between $48,000 and $90,000. The offset will also provide a benefit of up to $200 for taxpayers earning up to $37,000. On the other end, it will phase out a rate of 1.5 cents per dollar for those with incomes between $90,000 and $125,000 a year. Step 2 of the personal tax plan is to combat bracket creep. From 2018 to 2019, the top threshold of the 32.5% bracket will be extended from $87,000 to $90,000 per annum, thereby reducing the taxes by up to $135 for those with incomes between these two figures. From 2022 to 2023, The top threshold of the 32.5% tax bracket will be further increased from $90,000 to $120,000, while the upper threshold of the 19% bracket will be increased from $37,000 to $41,000. Further, the low-income tax offset will be extended from $445 to $645. Such augmentations guarantee endurance of the benefits outlined in Step 1. Finally, the third step proposed by this bill is the simplification and flattening of the tax system. From 2024 financial year, the upper threshold of the 32.5% bracket will be further extended from $120,000 to $200,000, consequently removing 37% tax bracket in its entirety. This results in a greater probability of one remaining in the same tax bracket for their entire working life. Note that the top marginal rate of 45% will remain, but only for those with incomes exceeding $200,000. As a result of these changes, more than 9 in 10 taxpayers are projected to face a marginal rate of 32.5% or less in 2024-25. Compare this with the estimated 63% under current settings, and you'll notice that our tax plan delivers a utility maximising, equitable scheme for all Australians, Mr Deputy Speaker. This bill can be summarised as a long-term, sustainable plan to reduce income tax payable for nearly every Australian. It puts an end to bracket creep and provides long-lasting certainty in our tax system. The personal income tax plan is a package. We ask the complete package, the complete promise, be legislated by this parliament. It is an all-or-nothing deal. If passed, taxpayers will be significantly ameliorated. If not, Parliament will have failed the people it seeks to represent and deepen its budget deficit. Australians need this plan. They need lower income tax and stability in the same way that businesses need an equitable corporate tax system with decreased rates. The Turnbull government has listened to the needs of taxpayers. We are providing relief where relief is needed and stricter policy where severity is due. Through legislation, both niche and expansive, our government is creating a prosperous economic environment. We are fulfilling our purpose as the great enabler, not the great enforcer. Mr Deputy Speaker, to see how this is the case, one need only look at any of the government's recent propositions. The Black Economy Task Force Measures Bill, for instance, aims to introduce criminal offences for the production, distribution, possession and use of electronic sales and suppression tools to falsify tax records. It proposes a specific method in which government can knuckle down on the underground economy. Fiscal crimes such as sales suppression contribute to a black economy potentially as large as 3% of GDP. This is $50 billion in unreported income, which results in approximately $4 billion of lost government revenue and abuse of our welfare system. It is thus highly significant that our government is tackling such a perverse market. Instead of targeting the compliant wealthy, we are knuckling down on lost revenue from those who wrought the system, those who manipulate the cash economy, launder money, Phoenix companies, commit fraud and underreport income. In addition to such expansive bills, the government has proposed a number of nitty-gritty policy amendments, such as the Primary Industries Research and Development Bill. This incoming legislation aims to combat the ghastly costs of statutory marketing levy by allowing R&D corporations to undertake marketing activities with funds raised by voluntary contributions. For rural industries, this reduced regulatory burden results in more time spent on productivity-enhancing innovation. For individuals, Australians, the removal of a levy and thus lower costs engender lower prices. And for this government, as always, reduced regulation results in more resources being devoted to higher priority areas. Mr Deputy Speaker, it is not difficult to apply elementary economic theory to government policy. As we have just seen through the examples I outlined, lower rates and tightened loopholes lead to an equitable taxation system which allows for increased consumption and investment. This is what drives our economy, and this is what drives Australia to a better future.